Okay, so as credit card enthusiasts, we all know that when traveling abroad, we should always use credit cards with no foreign transaction fees. And of course, cards like the Chase Sapphire Reserve and the Capital One Venture X are two popular cards that are great to use for this purpose. But if annual fees aren't your thing, there are definitely cards with no annual fees that we could use as well. And in this video, we're going to cover the 7 best credit cards that don't have these fees, so you could get the best spending multiplier possible without sacrificing those earnings because of an annual fee. Now, as we go through this list, one thing is going to be very clear, and that is that there's not any credit cards listed from Chase or American Express. Starting with Chase, they do have co-branded credit cards with no annual fees and no foreign transaction fees, like the Marriott Bonvoy Bold, IHG One Rewards Traveler, and the United Gateway card. But as co-branded cards, using them is going to depend on how much you stay at Marriott and IHG or travel with United. Still, if you have these cards lying around, they could be great no annual fee options to be used as backups to your primary travel card in case something happens to it. Now, as for American Express, it's very similar to Chase in that there are some no annual fee co-branded credit cards that also have no foreign transaction fees, such as the Hilton Honors card and the Delta Blue card. Again, if you happen to have these cards and stay at Hilton's or fly with Delta, these could be great options to use as a backup travel credit card. Okay, so now that we've discussed Chase and American Express, let's get into the first 3 types of cards which would make up the primary trifecta, that being your core card, secondary or supporting card, and a catch-all credit card. Again, these cards all have no annual fee and no foreign transaction fees, but as such, these cards are mainly focused on cashback, except for the first card that we'll be discussing, and that would be the Wells Fargo Autograph card. At the time of the recording of this video, this card has a standard welcome offer of 20,000 bonus points after spending $1,000 in purchases in the first 3 months. Now, these points can be redeemed at 1 cent per point as a direct deposit to your Wells Fargo account, as well as a statement credit against your credit card balance. But transfer partners are coming to this card, so hopefully we'll hear about that real soon. And the multipliers on this card are pretty good as well, with 3x points back on restaurants, travel, gas and EV charging, transit, popular streaming services and phone plans, as well as 1x points back on all other purchases. I would say that all these multipliers are pretty useful when traveling, specifically the first 4 categories that we just listed. When it comes to dining, Wells Fargo defines this as eating places and restaurants, drinking places, fast food restaurants, and caterers. And there doesn't seem to be any limitations on this multiplier, so it should be able to be used worldwide. For the travel and transit categories, this card includes all the major subcategories that you'd typically expect, and I'd consider the coverage on the autograph card to be pretty broad. And with the gas category, this also includes EV charging stations, which is great because it future-proofs this card as more and more electric vehicles are entering the market and EV charging stations become more widely distributed. In my opinion, gas is likely going to continue to be an important credit card category over the next decade, at least, but having an EV charging category included is important too, and I'm happy that Wells Fargo has taken that stance as well. Now, as you may be considering using this card for travel purchases for that higher 3x multiplier, just know that even though the card offers travel and emergency services, these are more for assistance, and all costs for services you need will ultimately be your responsibility. So if you're looking for a travel card with traditional travel benefits such as trip cancellation and interruption insurance, or trip/baggage delay insurance or reimbursement, using a higher tier card with an annual fee with these benefits would probably be the better move. It's also important to point out that this card also has cell phone protection. As long as you pay with your Wells Fargo credit card, your phone is covered for damage, theft, and, quote, involuntary and accidental parting of a cell phone. The terms specifically state that the benefit does not cover cell phones that are lost, i.e. mysteriously disappear. Now, it's hard to figure out the difference between involuntary and accidental parting of your phone versus phones that are lost, but I think this just means that you have to understand this difference for yourself if you decide to file an insurance claim for a cell phone. And speaking of claims, you have an allowable maximum of 2 paid claims per 12-month period for a maximum of $600 per claim, less a $25 deductible. So if you have theft of your phone or you involuntarily and accidentally part with your cell phone during your trip, Wells Fargo has you covered, well, at least for $575. So even though this card has a lot of nice benefits and great multiplier coverage, there's one important category that's missing, and that would be the grocery category. this is the one category that separates this card from the Citi Premier card, which includes this category at 3x points back, but for a $95 annual fee. So of course, we need to cover the grocery category with another card, and there are two options. We're going to first start with the better option, which is the AAA Daily Advantage credit card. This card is available to you even if you're not a AAA member, although I've heard that there are some geographical restrictions, so you'll have to see if you can get this card when you enter your zip code on the credit card application. The AAA Daily Advantage card, which is issued by Community Bank, has a standard welcome offer of $100 in statement credit after spending $1,000 in the first 90 days of account opening. And what makes this card especially attractive is its multipliers. This card earns 5% cashback on grocery store purchases, 3% cashback on gas and EV charging stations, wholesale clubs, streaming services, pharmacy, and purchase at AAA, and 1% cashback on all other purchases. And yes, this card is a Visa, so it works at Costco. And not only this, there have been many data points revealing that the grocery category also works at Walmart. So if that's where you get your groceries, this card would be a nice addition to your collection. But there's a limit of 5% cashback on grocery store and 3% cashback on wholesale club and gas and EV charging purchases on the first $10,000 spent in a calendar year, then 1% thereafter, so just keep that in mind. But as this card has no annual fee and no foreign transaction fees, it's still very powerful. Now we're focusing on this card because it complements our main Wells Fargo Autograph card very well. And since both cards have no foreign transaction fees, you now have restaurants, groceries, gas, travel, and transit covered at elevated multipliers when you're traveling abroad. But as I mentioned earlier, this card may not be available to everyone. So if that's you, what do you do then? Well, there's another fantastic option for you, and that would be the Capital One Saver One card. This card has a standard welcome offer of $200 after spending $500 within 3 months of account opening. The multipliers on this card include 5% cashback on hotels and rental cards booked through Capital One Travel, 3% cashback on dining, entertainment, popular streaming services, and at grocery stores, and 1% cashback on everything else. And since we're still in 2024, we also can't forget that this card also has complimentary Uber benefits, including 10% cashback on purchases on Uber and Uber Eats, as well as coverage for the Uber One membership fee through November 14th, 2024. So if you can't get the AAA Daily Advantage card, the Capital One Saver One card can cover that grocery category at the 3% level with no annual fee and no foreign transaction fees. And with this card, you also get an entertainment multiplier of 8% cashback when using Capital One Entertainment, as well as 3% cashback on other entertainment purchases. Okay, so now we have 2 slots in this trifecta covered with broad multiplier coverage, depending on which supporting card you chose to complement that primary Wells Fargo Autograph card. But of course, there's one card left to consider, and that's going to be the catch-all credit card. Now, there are tons of catch-all credit cards to choose from, but when we factor in cards with no foreign transaction fees, that list gets significantly smaller. And so I have 2 options for you to consider, starting with my personal favorite, which is the Alliant Visa Signature Card. This card is issued by the Alliant Credit Union and doesn't have a welcome offer, but it earns unlimited 2.5% cashback on your first $10,000 of qualifying eligible purchases each billing cycle, then 1.5% cashback after that, as long as you have Tier 1 rewards. Now, there are several requirements you need to complete to earn and maintain that status. The first is to opt in to receive e-statements, which is pretty easy. The second is to make at least 1 electronic deposit post to your Alliant high-rate checking account each calendar month, and yes, ACH transfers from other banks do count. And the third is to maintain an average daily balance of $1,000 or more. And when you first get approved for this card, new cardholders automatically earn Tier 1 rewards for the first 100 days. So you have time to get your Alliant high-rate checking account set up during this time. So it's not terribly complicated to get this all set up. But if jumping through these hoops is not something that you want to do, there is another option, and that option is the Bank of America Travel Rewards Card. The standard welcome offer for this card is to earn 25,000 bonus points after making $1,000 in purchases in the first 90 days of account opening. And like the other Bank of America branded credit cards, the base multiplier isn't really that great. But by being in the Preferred Rewards program, this card becomes one of the most powerful catch-all credit cards out there. The multiplier on this card is to earn unlimited 1.5 points for every $1 spent on all purchases, but with Preferred Rewards, this multiplier can be even higher. At the gold tier with $20,000 up to $50,000 in assets with Bank of America or Merrill Lynch, you earn a 25% credit card rewards bonus. At the platinum tier with $50,000 up to $100,000 in assets, you earn a 50% bonus. And at the platinum honors tier with $100,000 or more in assets, you earn a 75% bonus. This increases the multiplier on this card to 1.875x for gold, 2.25x for platinum, and 2.625x for platinum honors. And although $100,000 is a lot of money, accounts such as a self-directed brokerage, IRAs, and 529s from Merrill all qualify, so it may be easier to get to these levels if you include money you're saving for investing, retirement, or educational expenses for your dependents. It's also important to point out that to redeem these points at 1 cent per point, you have to redeem them as a statement credit against an existing travel or dining purchase with redemption starting at 2,500 points. Okay, so that covers the catch-all credit cards, but there are 2 more credit cards that you can add to this trifecta to get you even better value. Of course, when traveling, aside from airfare and hotel, one of the biggest expenses is going to be the dining category, so it would be nice if we could get a better multiplier than what we already have. And there's actually 2 cards that fit this purpose quite nicely, with the first being the US Bank Altitude Go card. This card has a standard welcome offer of 20,000 points after spending $1,000 in purchases in the first 90 days. It earns 4x points back on dining, takeout, and restaurant delivery, 2x points back at grocery stores, grocery delivery, streaming services, gas stations and EV charging stations, and 1x points back on all other purchases. You also can earn a $15 statement credit per 12-month period after 11 consecutive calendar months of eligible streaming service purchases, which is nice to have. But what we're interested in is this 4x points back on dining on a card with no annual fee and no foreign transaction fees. Pretty powerful stuff. But if you want one of the top cards of them all, look no further than the Redstone Visa Signature Card issued by the Redstone Federal Credit Union. This card earns 5% cashback on restaurants and gas purchases, 3% cashback on groceries, discount stores, wholesale clubs, utilities, and phone and streaming services, and 1.5% cashback on all other purchases. So if you wanted to add this card to your setup, you could earn an even higher multiplier of 5% in not only the dining category, but also the gas category as well, making this one of the best to supercharge your no annual fee, no foreign transaction fee setup and take it to the next level. Okay, so let's take a look at the 7 cards we just covered to see how they fit all together to form this very powerful setup. We have the Wells Fargo Autograph card as our primary card in our trifecta, covering the most common categories except groceries with some pretty valuable benefits such as cell phone protection. We have the AAA Daily Advantage or Capital One Saver One card to cover that missing grocery category. We have the Alliant Visa Signature or Bank of America Travel Rewards card to cover that catch-all category. And we have the US Bank Altitude Go and the Redstone Federal Credit Union Visa Signature card to get us that extra bump when it comes to that dining multiplier. So definitely play around with this setup. There's a lot of flexibility with these cards since all of them have no annual fee, and of course you can mix and match them with your favorite mid-tier or even higher tier credit card if you'd like. The whole point of these setups is to find what works for you. So if there are other mid-tier cards you'd like to add like the Chase Sapphire Preferred or the Citi Premier, or even heavy hitters like the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Capital One Venture X, the choice is definitely up to you. But if you're curious about other setups and you're interested in ultra maximizing your spending and getting 5% cash back on everything, check out this video next.